Hello friends and welcome back. So today we are going to be doing another mod review. The mod we're reviewing today is the Lost Colony of Tirawa. This is a fun little colony or quest that sets up like a little lost colony. So it's basically setting up like a small outpost that is supposed to be kind of like a quest hub with a couple different quests that you can do. So what I would consider this peers with is I would consider this peers with mods like Everbright and Venera. So this mod, I enjoyed it for the most part. I will let you know right now I spent a total of 2 hours and 12 minutes playing this mod. So it's a fair runtime. Cost is 500 credits. Basically, for 500 credits, I expect out of a quest mod to get at least 90 minutes of playtime out of it. And I was able to exceed that. So from a gameplay duration to dollars amount, it does kind of meet that standard. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to start off and just talk a little bit about the outpost that is given to you. Well, not the outpost, the kind of like little lost colony. We're going to talk about that first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the side quests, and then we'll talk a little bit about the gameplay of the main quest, and then we're going to get into the story of the main quest itself. And I'm saving that for last because I have a little bit of critiques I want to make about that one in particular, and I will have a little bit of spoilers in it, so I want you to get most of the video in before like people that may want to avoid spoilers can bug out. But let's go ahead and take a look at the city or the lost colony of Tirawa. So the main quest, you can pick that up in the, what is it? The mast building in the Aegis section. There's a little HR section. You'll find a lady there. But it's going to send you here to Rhea, which is a moon of Saturn. And as you could see, we could see Saturn in the background as we were landing there. So that is something that I am going to praise right off the bat was the mod author when placing this settlement. They took a little bit of time to make sure that the skybox was correct. Another thing I'd love to point out about this was like the little Tirawa sign with established 2199. Nice little touch to add kind of like a visual representation of the lore. And as far as like actual design, this like little white igloo things in row houses, it kind of felt a little bit bland to me. I would have probably preferred habs that were a little bit better decorated. But we're going to talk a little bit about a quest that comes with Tirawa here, and this is like specific to the settlement itself. You'll meet some people at this settlement, and they do provide some quests. One quest in particular that I really enjoyed was this quest where you're given some vacuum tape, and you're basically told to seal up some oxygen lines that supply the habs with oxygen. And I thought this was very fun and unique because, one, it gets you to explore the settlement, and I would say a little bit more redeeming features of the settlement is like the scrapyard, because they have like kind of these half torn down mechs and stuff. But as part of this quest, sealing up these oxygen lines, they're above the ground. We're in this low gravity environment, so you have to like use your boost pack to kind of get up to these areas and actually like seal them. And I thought this was a very interesting mechanic. We don't really see much of it in the base game itself, so I thought this was probably in my opinion, it was the best quest of this mod because I thought it's encouraging players to kind of explore the settlement that they just got. And then two, it's also utilizing that mechanic of the boost pack very well by making sure that the oxygen line is a sufficient amount off the ground that you can't just reach it by walking. So you actually kind of have to like fly up and like seal it up utilizing your boost pack, which in my opinion, is a very good and great design to do for a quest, because we're utilizing that boost pack mechanic to in a very unique and interesting way in having us like seal up these little oxygen lines up above the ground. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was kind of a fun aspect to kind of get you to explore around the settlement itself and take it all in. Now, the settlement, it was a bit hit or miss. I wasn't a huge fan of the white igloos. I thought that looked a little bit bland to me, but I did like the sign out front giving us a little bit of a lore drop on the settlement, telling us it was established in 2199. And then we have all these like kind of like half torn apart mechs in the mech graveyard. That does give it a little bit more interesting spice, if you would say. But overall, yeah, pretty decent design. I probably would have dressed up the habs, the living areas, a little bit more and gone with something a little bit more eye-catching because, this is like a snow-covered moon of Saturn, and those little like white igloos, they really blend in with the scenery. They don't kind of like stick out and say like, hey, this is a settlement. But like that's probably my only grievance about the look of this, and that's mainly my personal preference. You can let me know what you think of that. If you think maybe the mod author should have gone a different route with like the living quarters of this settlement, or if this was something that you thought was like aesthetically pleasing and enjoyed. I know my personal taste, I thought it just blended in way too much with the background. But let's go ahead and move on to some of the characters you meet in this settlement here. One of the characters that I really liked was like the local bartender for this lost colony of Tirawa. I found it very interesting. I thought the voice acting was very well done. I'll kind of let you listen to the intro so you can kind of think, form your own opinion on this and leave the rest of the dialogue for you to uncover.
I'm the closest thing this town's got to a mayor, which mostly means I handle disputes and make sure nobody freezes to death. It's not glamorous, but someone has to keep things running.
So definitely an interesting character there. I'm going to share another character with you. And mainly, I just want to kind of point out there's, at least with the voice acting, not the voice acting itself, but the recording of the voice acting, there's a little bit of inconsistencies in this, as though it was kind of like, completely different microphones recording these things in different quality levels of that. And it kind of stuck out a little bit. I did enjoy this particular character. It's the character that gives you the quest to kind of fly around and tape up all the leaky oxygen lines, but it stuck out. It was very noticeable, the recording difference, but I'm going to go ahead and just let it play, and you can kind of make your own judgment on that.
If you're looking for someone to tighten a bolt or stop a reactor from melting down, I'm your man. Otherwise, go knock on someone else's dome.
I'm sure you can kind of see what I mean with like the inconsistency in recording quality. Like that sounds probably like a $40 boom mic compared to the prior person that sounded like they were operating on like a $500 boom mic. It's kind of very noticeable to go from one of these characters to him and then hear a noticeable difference within the audio quality itself. Not that I guess I'm not going to hold it against the mod author, because I'm sure that there was probably some kind of need where one of the people recording, like they pulled someone in at the last second, did very good voice acting. I actually really enjoyed that character. I just thought it was kind of like stuck out like a sore thumb. And kind of broke the immersion a little bit, because now I'm sitting there thinking about the microphone they're recording on instead of the voice acting itself and the story that they're telling. So I think my suggestion to the mod author is make sure that audio quality is similar between the different voice actors, and they're operating with very similar audio recording equipment, because like those major differences, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it can be rather distracting for a player when they hear something that's recorded on a radically different microphone. But I think we're going to kind of move on to a procedurally generated quest that they do have. I have a little bit of thoughts about this, but we'll go ahead and just get into it, and I'll show you it. So in the main quest of this mod, at the end of it, the completion, you're going to get the opportunity to do this kind of like procedurally generated loop quest where you go to these mobile xeno research labs, and they'll have samples of like xenobiology that you'll be able to sell to the quest giver. Now, my thought on this is I like the initial premise. But as you can see, throwing a master lock at people every time they do this, this is probably people's least favorite game mechanic within Starfield, is the lockpicking mechanic, and then throwing a master lock on top of it. It's like rather time consuming, and it's kind of like boring and tedious stuff. So I don't really anticipate myself doing this whole bunch. And also one of the things I don't know what the spawn rate on this is, but after playing this, I noticed this is spawning quite a lot in my procedural generation, and it's one of those things like I'd rather other stuff be spawning in those locations and not this particularly. So I would suggest maybe turning down the rate of occurrence that this can spawn, because I'm basically seeing it at least one on like every tile almost. It seems like it's happening very high. If I'm just like getting the luck of the draw and it's an actual like lot lower rate, please let me know this and like correct me on this. But like I've seen it quite a lot since playing this particular mod. So that my full thoughts are on that is like get rid of the lockpicking mechanic and see if we can put some other kind of mechanic in there, because I don't think many players enjoy the lockpicking mechanic, and then maybe tone down the spawn rate on it. Because at least my thoughts are, like, I don't want, like, you could get a ton of credits from looting those things and selling it. I would rather it be a very tricky find where I might stumble upon one in like 60 hours of gameplay and there's no lockpicking mechanic at all. Then it spawns very frequently and I have like a master lock sitting in front of me because like I'm just going to ignore them. And the temptation to like uninstall the mod so I can have more desirable procedural generation pop into that spot instead is very tempting. So I would highly suggest turning down that rate and maybe toning down the master lock to like a novice lock or something like that, or dropping the lock entirely and making it region based and extremely rare. That would probably be a better option in my opinion. Just make it harder for players to find and have the mechanic be primarily a hide and seek mechanic instead of a lock picking mechanic. But I do love the thought of adding in a procedurally generated quest where you're kind of getting like this xenobiology samples and then selling them for tons of cash. I just think it's populating a little bit too frequently, and two, I just don't like the lock picking mechanic as I think you could probably get by with just a hide and seek mechanic and just making it extremely rare within the procedural generation and limited and difficult to find. And I think we're going to double back here on the colony of Tirawa just a little bit here. And this kind of ties into a little bit of criticism I do have about like the story and plot line. So I love the aspect that you built out a lot of lore for Tirawa and kind of integrated that into the town itself. One thing I don't like about that is that it is basically handed to the player. What I mean by that is you can just walk up to NPCs, talk to them, and they'll tell you everything you want to know about the settlement. Whereas I think a better approach is giving out a fair amount of information and then later in the plot line of your story revealing something that kind of changes the player's perception of that settlement, which is something we never really got within the storyline. I know this is something like Bethesda does a lot with their storytelling. They'll give you a lot of lore, but then throughout the like quest or whatever you're doing, they'll drop just a little something that'll change your whole entire perspective on whatever it is. But we're going to listen to a little bit of the lore here that's presented to us as well, just so you can see what I mean.
Oh, way back in 2199. It's one of the older colonies in the UC. When the colony war broke out, it was utilized as a fallback site for the UC evacuees. Then a dumping ground of sorts. Some left when things settled, but the rest of us, we decided to make it home.
So there is two characters, basically her and another shopkeeper, that will essentially lay out the entire lore of the lost colony of Tirawa for you and basically tell you the whole entire story of this. Like I said, I really love the fact that you build out lore for this. I just think it would be a massive improvement if you integrated a little bit of that lore storytelling into the actual quest of Tirawa. It felt kind of detached from the quest, and it didn't feel like, as a player, like I was earning that lore knowledge. It felt like basically, lore dumping, where I asked a question and they just give me everything under the sun that happened. Whereas in a lot of like traditional Bethesda storytelling, it's usually they'll give you a bit, and then throughout like your quest or your playthrough, you'll get other tidbits, or you'll get some through environmental storytelling. Well, we did get a little bit through the environmental storytelling at the front of the city. I just would have liked it kind of revealed to me as like I went through the quest to kind of heighten that tension within the quest itself. But we're going to go ahead and kind of move on into like actual gameplay. Like, how's this quest play? So what I'm going to say is there are 2 points of interest. One is rather small, it's just a crashed ship. And then there's this second point of interest, which is a little bit more substantial, and it basically has 2 combat areas. It has the exterior and the interior. But reviewing the exterior of this has very open game level design, and it basically promotes a lot of long range combat, which is very nice, enjoyable. A lot of things for enemy combatants to hide behind, and you yourself to hide behind as well. It plays very nice. A lot of enemy combatants, so it was pretty decent and fun fighting through this, and it did give me a fair amount of entertainment. But we're going to go ahead and move into the interior, because I found that to be a lot more interesting than this. Not that this wasn't interesting, but the interior had a very unique and interesting level design to it. So the interior of this location, you enter in through the roof, which is a awesome design. I always love doing that within points of interest, but it's like a warehouse, so it's kind of like divided up into 2 sections. We have like this one section which is like all shelving, and it provides like a lot of line of sight breaks for enemies and yourself as well. And then the other half of this warehouse is very open, so it provides a lot of opportunity to kind of like get up and get airborne, and a lot of open combat as well. And I absolutely enjoyed this playthrough. It was, a lot of fun playing through this because you have like these two radically different level design concepts going on. One that's very open, and then one that has lots of line of sight breaks with all these shelves, and it kind of like ends up being this really close quarter kind of combat in between those shelves, and then we have like this really open area. So I did love the split between this open combat and then like that section where there's like a bunch of shelves and a bunch of stuff to hide behind, and things get like really up close and personal with the combat itself. So I think this was very enjoyable, even though it's only one room in this warehouse. I think the level design and the uniqueness of having like one side very open and then the other side kind of a lot of line of sight breaks and stuff like that definitely made it a very interesting kind of playthrough, because you have like this very open area and this very closed off area, and it's kind of like night and day almost with like the level design in how it breaks up line of sight very well. So I absolutely enjoyed this, but we're going to go ahead and kind of move on to the story itself from here. So story-wise, this is probably where I'm probably going to take like the most issue with this mod itself. If I was going to describe it to you, I would describe it like drinking a flat soda. It had all the flavor, but none of the pop with it. And to explain exactly what I mean is a lot of it kind of came off like very emotionally flat. And because of this, I found myself being bored and wanting to skip through dialogue. And this mainly comes down to it didn't have the necessary emotional depth. Part of this was a little bit in the writing. Part of this was also the voice acting. I think a strong voice actor could have made it work, or a strong writer could have made it work. But it was kind of like, I wouldn't call it bad writing. What I would call it is amateur writing. And because it's also being delivered by an amateur voice actor, it doesn't quite connect. And I have kind of thoughts about this where I would say, if I was the mod author and I was going to go back and redo this, well, I don't think you need to redo the entire thing. I think you need to focus on the hooks and the conclusion. You might potentially want to have the voice actors re-record the hooks and possibly rewrite them a little bit. I don't think like it needs a complete rewrite. I think it just needs a little bit more emotional depth, and possibly have the voice actors redo those scripts just for like a handful of lines, just to give this like a little bit more emotional depth. It felt, it had the general premise. So I can explain the general premise. The general premise of this is a ship on its way to New Homestead crash lands on the planet of Rhea. You meet a fellow, and well, you're sent by a HR lady from the UC to go investigate this. You meet someone who survived the crash. He is missing his sister, and that's basically it. You investigate the crash. And I will kind of explain like what I mean by hooks. Like a hook is like that initial dialogue. That's the part that's supposed to like capture the player. And that's kind of what was missing, was the hooks itself. There's two of them in particular. There's the initial quest hook, and then there is the hook where you meet the the survivor of the crash, and both of them kind of felt emotionally flat. And then there was also kind of the conclusion in the end that kind of felt emotionally flat as well. But if you need to, like, if you plan on playing this and you do not want any spoilers, right now is going to be a good time to bug out, because I'm going to be displaying a little bit of the dialogue from here, and it's going to be kind of showing major plot points to this story. So I will not be offended. Please, if you want to, go ahead and bug out. But we're going to go ahead and get into this, and we'll just show the first hook.
Long story short, a Star Freight logistics freighter went down en route to New Homestead, somewhere on Rhea, one of Saturn's moons. It just so happens one of the escape pods landed a couple clicks from an old colony of ours, Tirawa. No signal, no emergency beacon, just banished. Until now. Only one known survivor at this time, Thomas Suarez, Star Freight employee. He launched an escape pod just before impact, barely survived atmospheric entry. He's likely shaken, so take it easy on him. Whatever happened, it happened fast, and the crew was caught unprepared. I need you to find out what happened with this freighter. This kind of thing happening in UC space is a black eye on us all. I know I threw a lot at you there. What do you think? Is it something you can handle looking into?
My first thought is drop the, I know you, I threw a lot at you, but you think you can handle this, and do something a little bit more urgent. Like maybe say like, hey, we have multiple like survival pods that went down. We need to potentially see if there's any more survivors out there, because this is a time sensitive issue. And if I was doing the voice direction, a little bit more urgency in like how she delivers that. We have a crash ship. We need to investigate this quickly. We know there's one survivor. There might be more. Just to kind of like capture the player and get them wanting to do the quest itself. So that's like an initial kind of like thought I have about this, because like it didn't really catch my attention. That like delivery kind of felt monotone, like this wasn't a desperate situation, it wasn't urgent, it didn't need to happen right now. Which maybe that's the direction you went in intentionally. If it was, it's a mistake. There needs to be a little bit more urgency with the writing there to kind of pull in the player's attention and get them focusing on the story itself. But we're going to go ahead and move on from here. We're going to move on to the hook the survivor gives us, because that's like another important hook as well, that has like a chance to grab the player.
Don't know exactly. 1 minute I'm checking cargo manifests. The next, alarms, screaming, red lights everywhere. We lost control fast. I barely made it to the pod. My sister, Isabel, she was on the engineering deck. I don't know if she made it. Isabel and I signed on with Star Freight together. Good pay, decent route. Last thing she said to me was, "Don't wait if things go bad." I didn't want to listen, but I had to.
So, what I'm going to say is this is kind of like emotionally monotone for a person that has just survived a spaceship crash and their sister is missing. I would expect a little bit more emotion in their voice, maybe even inconsolable, where they're not able to kind of like finish the statement if you want to kind of go over the top with it. But one thing I wouldn't do is like the emotional flatness of this. And that's kind of where I found myself getting bored, was like the storytelling, the voice acting delivery. It felt very emotionally flat. One of the things I think probably could have maybe made this a little bit better from the writing standpoint is if there was something to like humanize the sister a little bit more, maybe like a short anecdote about her or something like that. Um, but I think probably the writing's fine. We just need a little bit better delivery in this particular line. And like I said before, like the whole thing does not need recorded, but like if you were going to go back to try to improve this mod, I think there's just like a handful of lines that would probably make this story pop a lot better than it currently does. It feels rather emotionally flat. Not everything needs to be like this over the top emotion, but like these initial hooks, they kind of do to grab the player's attention and get them engaged with the story appropriately. So that line plus the initial quest givers line as well. In my opinion, I think they need re-recorded to, one, in the initial quest giver, a little bit of urgency. Possibly rewrite that to include like, hey, there might be other survivors and we need to jump on this right now, and don't ask the player if they're willing to do this or not. Just give them the quest. They'll either do it or they won't. And then with Tomas, just a little bit more, well, actually a lot bit more emotion out of that delivery there. He just survived a spaceship crash. His sister's missing. Potentially, if you're able to do something short and simple, we don't need like a lore dump or anything, but something to humanize the sister a little bit more in that delivery, that also can kind of heighten the emotional impact of this and get the players involved a little bit more. But I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the conclusion of this and take a look at that delivery as well, because that's also a little bit of delivery I think can be improved in this storyline to kind of like give it that pop and that emotional reward at the end of the day. But yeah, we'll just let it play and see how it goes.
You're here. We heard you were coming by. We just wanted to say thank you from both of us.
You didn't have to risk yourself for strangers, but you did. And we're both alive because of it.
We scraped together some credits. It's not much, but we want you to have it.
And there we have it. That's kind of like the conclusion of this, and it too kind of felt very emotionally flat. Like it was up a little bit, but not to the levels where you would expect someone to be who is visiting the person that just saved their sister from a spaceship crash. I would expect a little bit more excitement and exuberance. Not that I care about a reward or anything, but mostly the emotional payoff from the quest itself. So this is kind of like my overall thoughts of this. Is there is a there's all the elements of a good story here, but it is lacking like the emotional depth to kind of like hook the player in to actually enjoy this story. So if I was the one that made this mod, I probably would re-record the hook for the quest giver to have a little bit more urgency, and then I would probably also re-record the hook for Tomas to maybe bring out a little bit more desperation and shock, because like he just survived a spaceship crash. His sister's missing, potentially dead. I would expect a little bit more emotion out of that, potentially crying while he's recording it. And then also when you rescue this sister as well, I would expect a lot of relief from that, because if you were in that situation, you would probably think you were dead. And then the final conclusion, I would expect a little bit more exuberance out of the delivery there. Overall, I think it's a very good story. I just think there's a handful of moments that really kind of bring the emotional tone of this quest to like a flat level where it's not grabbing the player's attention. So that's kind of my thoughts. I guess to kind of wrap up this video and maybe provide it with a rating and suggestions. This mod's going to be for anyone that is in particular looking for like a settlement mod that adds several quests. And I think at the beginning of this video, I said this competes with Venera and Everbright. This is only $5. Venera was, how much was Venera? I think that was $7, and then I think Everbright was $6. So this is going to be the cheapest of the all three of them, but price aside, if I wasn't considering price at all, I think Everbright's my favorite, followed by Venera, and then this. If I was going to give this a rating, I'm going to call this about a 7.5. It's like C+ territory. There was some mechanics I really enjoyed. One, you picked the skybox out really well. There was lore incorporated into the settlement. I like that. I wish the lore was a little bit sprinkled throughout the quest as well. I did like elements of the settlement design, mainly the scrapyard. I liked the kind of like half torn apart mechs. I was not a huge fan of the white igloos. I thought that just blended in too much with the background of the moon itself. I loved the one point of interest. It was short, simple, but it had very good level design and it played very fun as well. The procedural generation quest, I like the idea and concept of it, though I do think it needs a little bit of tweaking, possibly drop the lockpicking mechanic entirely and maybe go for more of a hide and seek kind of vibe with that, where they're really hard to find instead of very common and have a master lock on them. And then overall with the story, I think we have a very good structure of a story, though I will say that some of the voice acting delivery and some of the writing doesn't have the initial, the emotional heights it needs at certain moments, namely the hooks to the quest, and then like the conclusion and the climax of the quest, and it gives it this very emotionally flat kind of feeling. So if I was going to recommend this to anyone, I'd basically say it's fair deal at $5, but don't expect like an absolute emotional banger of a quest. It's a very enjoyable quest, though I did find myself getting bored at moments with the dialogue. But overall, I did enjoy myself. I felt it was a fair deal. I played for 2 hours and 12 minutes before I had completed everything in this quest, and at $5, that's a very good deal. That's cheaper than both Venera and Everbright. Though I would say for the extra dollar, you might want to pick up Everbright, but if you've already picked up Everbright and you're looking for something else to buy, I'd say this is also a good pickup as well. Though I'm going to say I think the voice acting and the writing in Everbright is a little bit superior, and then I also think the romance quest in Everbright, I just finished that up like a week ago. I did that review like a month ago, but I finished up the romance quest like last week. It took forever to do, but it was very rewarding, and that character Alana is very well voice acted and very well written. This I'd say it's it's average. It's 7.5 out of 10. I think there's some easy things that the mod author could do to bring up the score a little bit, and that's namely kind of like re-recording a handful of lines within that quest to give a little bit more emotional depth to the storytelling, and also maybe throw like a curveball on the Tirawa lore when we're doing the quest, something that changes the perspective of how we view Tirawa. But other than that, it was enjoyable quest. It's very cheaply and reasonably priced. Fair deal for 2 hours and 12 minutes of gameplay. But as always, friends, please enjoy your night.